Imagine creating a business in 2020, right in the pandemic, and 4 years later become the brand of the year. Also, be a brand that is disrupting how fashion is distributed. That's what my guest today has done. And I'm very happy to host him here in São Paulo, the city I lived for many years. And so did he. And I'm very excited to share with you the story of Larroudé. Here's Paula Macaggi. This is our first episode of our second season of my show. Welcome to OFFBounds. Ricardo, it's such a pleasure to have you here in São Paulo.
Thanks
Welcome to
having me.
OFFBounds. This is our first episode of our second season.
That's great.
And it's such a pleasure to be in the city. I spent so much time in my life.
I grew up here too, yeah. I was here for 15 years, yeah.
Yeah, I was here for my college, so...
I did college here too.
Yeah, nice. It's a pleasure to have you here, especially because you are the co-founder and CEO of the Brand of the Year.
Yeah.
Larroudé got this
It's
award in 2024, which is super big. And for a young brand, you were founded in 2020.
2020, middle of the pandemic, crazy thing. People should not be opening footwear businesses in the middle of a pandemic. Like, people are not really going anywhere.
Did you get this advice?
I got someone, most people thought I was going crazy, but the thing that gave me the certainty was that this is going to pass. Just like the 2008 crisis had passed. This was a natural disaster. It was something that was just like a big rain, and eventually it was going to go away and people would be walking again. So if there's a time to start something, is when everyone's very afraid, you should be bold. So,
people are holding the...
Yeah, and that allowed us to get into factories in the south of Brazil. That allowed us to, get space on media because no one was doing new things. So we actually were like, well, those guys are crazy. They're doing something different. Let's tell that story. So we actually brought a lot of awareness into us because no one was doing things.
So why don't you tell us what is Larroudé for our audience that doesn't know?
Yeah, so we are a footwear brand that we actually produce in Brazil. Our primary market is the United States. We're based in New York. We were founded in 2020. We got on that launch that year. We launch of the year for Footwear News. And then 2 years later, now we got Brand of the Year. We are an up-and-coming footwear brand, We've been growing quick.
But there are so many footwear brands, especially focused on women. I feel, I'm not a specialist, but I feel it's already a saturated market. What made you think that you could compete?
So when we were positioning the company, 90% of the shoes that are produced and sold are below $115. But if you look at the profits, 50% of the profits actually happen on the upper end of prices. And you either had very low, prices between, $0 and $100. 90% of the volume happens there. And no one in between, the 100 and call it the $550, $600, a shoe, which is a high-end luxury. I said, what if I created something that was as good as a quality as the high-end market, but I was able to price it at something like $300 or $350?
So there was a mid-market gap.
Yes. So the way we're doing by vertically integrating and being DTC, so vertically integrating on the back end and the front end of, distribution channels and supply chain, we did the Warby Parker effect, but twice. So we moved production from Italy, which was a much higher cost, to Brazil, which had a lower cost for us. So that allowed us to have a very competitive edge. And then we put on top of that, all the designs and the brands we wanted to make something that felt unique on the other end, and also something that was tailored for really women. So we added more comfort to the lasts. By being more affordable, women could buy not just the black or the brown shoe. They could do, a pink shoe, a red shoe. So just like Uniqlo allowed people to have more options when they were buying cashmere, if you allowed
have
footwear.
Like 20 different
colors. Like you used to buy only blue cashmere or black cashmere. And now you can buy it with a flower print on it and do it. And it's much more affordable than it used to be, 20 years ago. We're doing the same thing for footwear. So it's really bringing fashion to footwear. People can play. There's no guilt when they buy the shoe. There's a lot of things that people like. They want to buy it. They want to buy the red. They want to buy the fashion piece. But they're expensive. So they go for the safe. They go what they can wear to work. So if you cut the price by 3, you can maybe buy one for work and one for, whenever you go out.
So you're saying that you saw that advantage, the gap was an advantage in terms of quality and price. So higher quality, lower price.
Yes. But there was a huge, it wasn't like a straight line. There was these big two bubbles of everything. Everyone was below 100. And you had a lot of guys that made very, big news that were above 500. But in between, there was not a lot of like new things that felt like a high-end brand. So we go to the middle market, but we do it to look like a higher market brand. So that way I can get both sides of people that want to upgrade from the $100 shoe, which, I mean, they're great. Some of them are great, but sometimes you want to have a more quality and you want to have a higher end brand. And also people that are just tired from this luxury market that just keep raising prices. That are like, you know what? I don't want to have to sell my soul to get a pair of shoes.
So welcome to my life.
Yeah, it is. But you'll get a Larroudé and you'll understand what I'm talking about. That it just feels. It smells when you open the box. It smells like a very high-end product. It's really well made, just like any Italian shoe.
So that was the concept that you and Marina, your wife.
Well, she would always get things, as gifts, or she could buy it at wholesale prices. She always had this access to, and she loves fashion. And she was like, "Well, what about all these other people? Like, if I didn't have these jobs, like, I couldn't afford to do that. A lot of people get jobs in fashion just so they could have these discounts." And I'm like, what if we just created a system? We aligned suppliers and figure out a distribution system that everyone could have that type of price and enjoy these types of products. That's the whole idea. In a way, I basically try to make my wife happy. It is, but listening to what would make her happy, both working at a fashion company, so that's what helped me design the company, but also as a client from other brands that you shouldn't be struggling to buy it. Like, you should not feel guilty when you're buying a product. That's not how it should feel.
It should feel happy.
It should feel happy. You should want to show it to the world. You shouldn't be hiding stuff when you go inside the house. Or like when people ask you, you're embarrassed to tell them what you paid for. You know what I'm saying? You should be like, they're great. They're this amount. You should get another one too. You should actually use my QR code to buy it. That's how we think about it. It should be a sharing experience. It shouldn't be like, I don't like a lot of the upper part of the fashion world that they're like, well, you got to be exclusive. You got to do this. And they just put a high price that makes a lot of people feeling like they're not able to get into a party. And it shouldn't be about like, you can't sit with us. It should be inviting. Like, I think luxury is about just being better than you had before, not having something that someone else doesn't have.
What is luxury
That's
for
the
you?
concept. For me, it's about just improvement. It's about having something that you didn't have before. It's like, obviously, it's superfluous. It's something that you didn't need before, but it feels great to have. But it doesn't have to be that it feels great to have because someone else doesn't have. It feels great because you didn't have it before. So it's a constant improvement from what you didn't have before. That's my feeling. But people say it's just a way of the interpretation of words, and people that interpret the other way are, at yachts and the Mediterranean. So it's like, it's not that I'm right, but that's how I feel. It's about I think Uber is a super luxurious experience. You can land any place in the world. You open a black screen and you click a few things and a driver shows up and picks you up. If you talk about that 20 years ago, you'd be like, that you'd have to be a billionaire to do that. And everyone does it, and it's luxury, but you don't use those words to say that. But it's improvement of life. It's improvement to a feeling that you didn't have before.
You touched something about having a verticalized business.
Yeah.
So I understand that also your competitive advantage is in your supply chain.
Yes, but it's not a cost thing that just if you do your own supply chain, you're able to cut costs. That happens for sure. But the biggest thing is the reduction of points of risk. When you deal with a very fragmented supply chain on an industry that goes through volatility, which is fashion, everyone buys for one and tries to sell for two, buys for two, try to sell for four, because they don't know what's going to happen at the end. They're always afraid of not getting paid or that business going away. So they got to put those margins in. The moment that you do the whole thing and you connect it to the client at the end, you align everyone to do what the client really wants. And if you have a lot of people in the middle, it's just about the next step. And that makes things become expensive all the way to the end, but also makes you become slow and you can't react as fast. That's one of the things that I think that fashion needs to be picked up, is that the moment that everyone, like in Europe, people do their own things. If you think about the bigger brands and, Footwear, Birkenstock, they all produce what they do. And they're really product focused, and from product, they create brands. When you think about the American model, American continent, this happens in the US and happens in Brazil, people start from, I'm just going to create a brand. I'm going to find someone to make it cheap for me. And even sometimes I'm going to find someone else to sell it for me, like a, franchisee. Mm-hmm. And I think that if you're not really adding value to what the client really wants, you're not really making the product and you're not really selling the product, what are you really doing? It's just like, making a cool, mood board.
Making a cool
a lot. Like there's
brand,
thousands of people that can do that. If you're just spending money on marketing, well, people can do that too. So you got to do the hard things. And then the connected supply chain allows you to be very quick. And the way we're organized is that the company doesn't do things hierarchically, that things just go up and down. We have departments. We think in a flywheel. So it's basically the design is being fed information from sales. And then from there, they're like, okay, they like this shoe. What do they like about this shoe? It's this color, it's this material, it's this style, it's this last. And then they're like, okay, what else can I deliver with those things that probably that shoe has? Our system is that we're very quick on doing that. So we don't have to wait for the next season to do an update.
You don't have to put an order with your
No, I don't do. I mean, I even change things. People tend to think that they have to get an order to then start acting. And imagine if McDonald's functioned that way.
If you Google Ricardo's name, everything's going to show up as direct to demand.
Yes.
And that's exactly how it sounds to me. I order and then you
so I think it has to do more with like farm to table, that the production is connected to demand. There will be things that will be very quick, which are things that are like in high demand. I will build that and say, hey, if the Big Mac becomes the Big Mac, you can always walk into Larroudé and you order Big Mac and it'll be in your hands in 1 minute. If someone starts to say, I want to start having like a chicken sandwich, I will be able to know that that's the demand that's happening. And if I need to make a Big Mac out of a chicken sandwich, that will happen as well. But if I do direct demand, it's almost a farm to table and people start to say, I want this. Then those products are created. That whole supply chain is created behind that specific product. And then I feed that to the client. It's more about we should not be producing things that I don't know that they have a demand for yet. And that's the efficient way. But things that I already know the demand happens, for sure, you should get it in as fast as you can.
Okay, yes. So if I order something that is popular, I'll get it like
and then and most of our shoes, if you really look, it's going to be 5 SKUs and 5 different colors will represent 80% of what we're doing.
Okay.
But the next one of these, you keep always adding and finding the new key models. I need to be able to do the other thing so I can find the next big hit. Just like in the music industry, you're always, obviously there's key ones that you've heard and they're always well played, but I gotta keep trying new artists and new songs because it might become the next Katy Perry or Britney Spears, so you gotta try those new things. So you gotta play them. And if they become a big thing, I will just produce more records.
I think it's even more sustainable.
Oh, for sure. No, the company is as sustainable as, Visha or any of these other guys. But I do it, obviously, I think that's the right thing. But it's the most if you don't waste things, it's definitely more profitable. I say that the cheapest shoe to make is the shoe that's already sold. Because your logic on risk inverts. If you're selling something for 100 and you already sold it, if you make it for 90, it's fine. You already made a profit. Now, if you don't know if you're going to sell it,
and you're already paid,
and you're already paid, then you start with this and you have like in a big pile, a warehouse with a bunch of shoes, and then you're not selling. Then you got to run discounts. And what does your brand look like if you're running it that way?
Yeah.
So that's the way that we invert it. That's the direct demand is really that.
And like these waste cost money too. Like,
100%. And it makes you slow. And then you're making decisions to fix a mistake of the past instead of making decisions to how do I make something better for the future? So it's always, when you do this, you don't have a problem of over inventory on something. I think it's more ethical. It's the right way. It makes sense. Like why?
It's better financially. It's better for the environment. It's just better business, as you're saying.
And I think that the client also wants. So for example, we already released everything that we're going to have in spring and clients could buy. And I said, listen, if you want to buy now, you're going to get it for 30% discount if you pick before. So instead of waiting for me to try all these things and then whatever doesn't sell, I give a 30% discount at the end, which they'll miss the whole summer wearing the shoe. I said, let me see these people first. They're going to buy. And now I know most other brands don't know what's going to sell next spring. I know because I already sold. So now I have for when actually spring comes, I'm going to have more variations of the stuff because I know the ones that they really like. And it just inverts. So why? The reason that fashion, this is how I understood it, that the post-war, American houses wanted to go to Europe and say, I want to buy things that I need to sell in America. But you didn't have internet, you didn't have, WhatsApp, you couldn't see pictures. So they'd have to do these fashion weeks. They would all fly and they'd do these shows and they would see, and then eventually they would go meet with the guys. Say, I want this, I want this, I want this. And then the European manufacturers would go to the factories and say, well, I got this big order from Nordstrom and Bloomingdale's. And then they would send all the stuff around. Like, why do we keep doing things that way? If you communicate much easier today you have FedEx, you can ship straight from the factory to the person's house, any place in the world. Like, let's just change these things. It shouldn't work that way. The way I built it, like, because I do things that I buy materials, I buy leather, I make the shoes myself, and I talk directly to the customer. It's us. It's me and the customer. I'm just trying to make whatever they want more. I'll do more. I have no one else to please.
And which channels do you sell?
We sell on our own website, which is our main channel, and we sell to wholesale partners as well. But in the beginning, we even sold to them for them to sell to their end clients. But we figured that they couldn't figure out what to buy, and it got to the end. They're like, "Oh, I want to run a sale. I want to return you some shoes." I was like, but why did you buy so many for that? And I said, well, because I didn't know. Yeah, and they're like you're trying to. One person says, you're trying to reinvent how footwear is distributed. I have big fights with them, and I said, that's exactly what I want to do. Is it shouldn't be done that way. And the within the fashion industry, the footwear, because shoe has so many sizes, that's the one that should have started with. Because you should not, you don't know, it's very hard to have inventory of everything that you want at the edge of the distribution channel. For all the sizes, you have to keep so much, and the shoes are big. They're big boxes. So the one that this should really start should be footwear. That you should just wait behind, and you should do a hub and spoke distribution system.
Yeah, but also I think there's another problem there. If you're selling direct to consumer online, there are a lot of returns.
Oh no,
Shoes
yes, but to fully answer, so we do that, but we also sell to the wholesalers. But what we do is that the direct demand, we keep stuff in our own inventory or a warehouse. So we do sell on their website. The client doesn't know. So when you buy at Nordstrom, they go back to my warehouse to pick up, and it goes to their house. But then I keep the hubs. I keep them. And the hubs are connected to my supply. So whenever I see Bloomingdale's is selling, Nordstrom is selling, I'm selling, I can see what I need to produce. So that's the way I do it. So even though I'm selling, and I sell Shopbop, Nordstrom, Bloomingdale's, I do it through marketplaces, and they use my logistics. So I have, logistics after the pandemic it's ubiquitous. Everyone has it. There's no need to me, if I want Nordstrom to sell, that I have to send them stuff for them to then sell on their own website. They can just connect their website to my thing, and everyone fulfills. So that's how the channels that we sell. Your next question was, I forgot, sorry.
It was about the return.
Yeah, so returns is a big thing.
Selling shoes online can be tricky.
Yes, especially for dress shoes. So sneakers, people know what their size are on well-known brands. So when you're buying Nike, Adidas, you do that. With dress shoes, you're like, does it run small? Or does it run, big? Big or small? What we are trying to do is bring that level of certainty into Larroudé. So we actually have much lower returns than other people. Like people I hear that dress shoes have 50% rate of returns. We have below 30.
Do you think that's because you own the factory?
Because we are scaling. Making shoes is very hard. So once you come up with a sample size, it's a 6.5. Once you're done with that, you approved it, then you got to bring it down to 5 or 4.5, and you got to bring it up all the way to 13. A 4.5 shoe is completely different than a 13. So by doing that internally and having always the same process to do that, you become a lot more precise. So people know that they're a 6.5 at Larroudé. So that makes your returns become much lower. The second thing is, I say that you got to have 3 wows when you sell a shoe. The first one is when you see it on a shelf or a website, you're like, wow, I like that one. Then you buy it. The second you touch it, you say, oh, this is really good. Wow, I like it. The third one is really when you wear it, you're like, this is very comfortable. And you're just like,
I need to tell everybody about it.
I need to tell everybody. When you've done that, it's the when you really get the client. If I get the 2 wows, my return rate is very low. The moment that they open the box and they try it and they're like, this feels really good for what I paid, then that's my return rate is the lowest. I think mine is low because they're like, oh, I wasn't expecting this quality when they open.
I think that you're pursuing the dream of many people. I'm sure there are hundreds of people that studied fashion that want to start a brand and become the brand of the year eventually. You started in 2020.
Yeah.
I was reading that in 2023, you already made $30 million in sales.
Which is crazy. It's not supposed to go that way. I think we could have been bigger, but I know it's a lot of, we could have done other things right, but it's not supposed to be that quick. I hear you.
Well, but that's absolutely impressive. How was the funding process to get this idea alive?
People think that it's like I just dumped a bunch of money into this, and our funding has been by selling shoes. So we have a fundraising strategy, which is like making the client happy, and clients give us money and we make more of what we need to do. So we did start this. We use our own savings, but the total equity that went into the business was, $1 million. That's all we did. We did a friends and family, round that I think a little over half was like some friends and family that put money in. The rest was my money. And the rest is, and what I did is that by having a very short production cycle and production to sales cycle, that made my need for working capital much lower. And whenever I was selling to anyone else, I said, listen, so you want to get a bunch of my shoes? Great. You have to prepay before I'm not going to make an order for you to have like 50% margins without you paying for my shoes.
Yeah.
And also we do pre-orders as well. So I've been in finance my previous life. I've built businesses before as an investor. The structuring of how the business should work and how do you fund each part of the business and where do you get loans and why do banks like financing this activity or that activity? I did bring that. Having a finance background to build this did help. I think that a lot of fashion businesses, you got to have both the yin and the yang. You got to have the creation side.
So that would be Marina, who came from fashion.
100%. Yes.
And you are from finance.
Finance business. Yeah, I do. Overall, we can't be peers. We got to have someone that looks over the whole thing. So I was the one picked to do that, and she does the whole creation side. But then I need to now I'm bringing other creatives into the mix. So we're going to be doing other brands. We're going to be doing, if I built this road that Larroudé is able to run through it, we're going to have other creative forces.
It's clear that you're very disruptive.
Yes.
Do you think that coming from outside of fashion outside of shoes is a strength or weakness?
I think for sure at the overall it's a strength. But there's some learnings that cost me money, from coming from the outside. There's two ways to learn, obviously is, seeing what someone else has failed and failing. So not knowing some things did cost me some money. But being an outsider, for sure, I don't know how things are supposed to behave. I know how other industries did behave. And there's a lot of things within the fashion industry that do not make sense. Like being categorized, like the way I described that they keep doing things like they did it in the post-war, after technology has changed and manufacturing technologies and supply chain, it makes no sense.
They just do it because that's how it's being done.
Yeah, if you don't know how things are supposed to work, you get to do things in a new way. I became a storyteller. I, convinced the team that this could work. Obviously, if I didn't have people that believed on doing this, I couldn't do it by myself. But being an outsider for sure I do like that book, Outsiders, that there's like a story of like 9 CEOs that came from the outside and they really created amazing companies because they came from the outside.
Yeah, I feel like, I've worked 20 years doing this. This is how it's supposed to be done is different than like, this is the right path. Like, we can go from A to B. We don't have to go to
yeah, exactly. It's like, why don't you just do it that way? Well, it doesn't work that way. I was like,
this is not how it works.
But why? Like, and the thing is, if you go in, like, imagine if Tesla tried to go into the auto industry trying to become Ford or Chevrolet. It's almost like in my mind, I was like, I need to do different and if you look at the success in so many brands that start and really finish, I was like, this model can't be the right way. I almost have to do things different, Like, look at all the American brands. Like, if you look through the ecosystem that sells at Nordstrom and Bloomingdale's, and how many of them really made it and how many of the founders still own those brands? Are they going into these junkyards of like brand owners? Why did it happen? So I can't follow their path. I gotta do something different. So in a way, yeah, I'm a contrarian. I've always been a contrarian. So I was like, okay, let's do let's do
Here
it
comes Ricardo with his opinion.
but they always, but it's funny because now that it's working, a lot of people are asking me what I'm doing. And in a way, I can't fall in love with the stuff I'm doing now because it's probably going to be wrong in 5 years because something's going to change. So that's the thing. I do believe that you always got to be reinventing. Like some businesses become very successful and they grow trees to be very tall.
We just saw Nike.
Yes, but then by doing that, they have roots that are too deep. So that doesn't allow them to move. So you got to be careful.
You have to be flexible.
Yeah. Netflix style of like always reinventing yourself. That's my thing. That's what I hope to do.
I follow you on Instagram for a while. That's how I got like, Ricardo, we have to talk. You have to come to OFFBounds.
Yeah.
And one of the things I saw recently is that you're hiring.
Yes.
So far you have been very successful. What can we expect from Larroudé in 2025?
So we're growing quite fast. We've been doubling every year. And we keep verticalizing. So we're also expanding internal production. So there's parts of the footwear business that production that we would outsource. So, making the bottoms of the shoes, the pre-fabrication. So we're bringing that in-house. We just rented, we have our second factory. We built the first factory, have our second high-volume factory. We learned that that's really working and we want more space. So we doubled that. I just signed the lease last Friday that we're going to double that. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. And we're going to go international in a bigger way. So it's about expanding our current production, keep growing in America. We launched in Brazil. And now we're going to do a series of launches in other countries. So Mexico, Peru, Colombia, Ecuador, Portugal, Spain. And we're going to follow like a set of rules for each one of these countries. So you should see more internal production. You should see more brands going through this internal production, which will always have a label of L, like L Studio made. And we're going to grow internationally. It will be a, geographic expansion for us.
That's very exciting.
Yeah.
2025 is going to be a big year.
It should be. It's going to be when we complete 5 years. And I hope that by November, December 1st, which is our anniversary of the launch, we'll have a good story to tell in 5 years.
I have no doubt.
Thank you.
You've been from the finance world.
Yeah.
That's where I started, but I'm not a good fit. How is it different now? Being a founder and CEO, What have you learned?
So I wanted to do this transition in 2017, and it took me a while to get to build my own company. I'm much happier now. This is what I think I was born to do. I do regret not doing this sooner. So if people have this hunch of starting something and doing something on their own, I suggest that they start earlier. And one thing that stopped me from doing this earlier was that because I had a big job and I was doing the investments were big and it was hundreds of millions, billions of dollars here. I was like, I can't go do a business that's going to do 5 million in sales. That's too little for me. But the thing is that you should just start something, because it's one step after the other. And that's what takes you to do something big. My therapist used to say, you should just open a hot dog stand. Because if you do that, in 10 years, you'll have Nathan's hot dog. And if you do that, you might have McDonald's. Just start, just get it started. And if you're talented and you're doing high level jobs and stuff like that, you can get. But the biggest thing that I learned from my side is that you cannot do it by yourself. The biggest thing for an entrepreneur is having a vision and convincing other talented people that vision works, and then having what their vision is and matching their vision into yours and going. So it's really about finding partners that could go down a journey with you.
Do you have someone that you admire that inspired you?
I have many.
Your career?
I have many. I think that some of the guys from 3G and how they did this, and I think a lot of the ways and approach to having meritocracy and incentives for people to come in came from seeing what they've done. Marcel Tell is, doing Brahma, turning into AB and Bev. That is very nice to see. I do admire him a lot. And especially because I think he was one of the first people to bring the formation as a founder of companies with real culture. That, there's a soul. You can say, oh, this person works at Ambev or works at... I know what the profile of that person is. If you think about Amazon, Jeff Bezos, if people know how Amazon works, it's there's a mentality. It's almost like an economic system. So those are the people that I admire for
What
sure.
is Larroudé's mentality?
I think it's this approach that like you should not think about like going up and down a cycle. So there's some values that I say, and you should try to think about the flywheel of how things work in an integrated way. But we have some quotes that said that the great is the enemy of the good. You know, that's something we always say, that the cheapest shoe, you can find, it's the shoe that's already sold. I say be a river. It's obvious, be pragmatic. You really want to get to the sea. So if there's a mountain, don't try to go through the mountain, go around it. Those are some of the sayings. I say if something matters to you, you should show up. It's really about like being present with people. Those are some of the values that we, say if you want to, I encourage people to have hard conversations, that usually hard conversations lead to an easier life. So those are some of the sayings that we do every day. And I keep saying this stuff, and I say it every Sunday. It's almost like going to church, And then I started to see people now, repeating these things to the rest of it. So this is the thing, that it's not, if you can't do it by yourself. You got to really find others that buy into this thing, and if it makes sense, and you got to be adjusting. It can't be just something that's like set in stone. And you got to make a company that the people building it, they also feel like they own it. Although the name was my last name, I don't look at it, just as I never see it as like it's theirs. Our motto is you, us, we all. I really try to make the company as, the employees really own it. And they do. Actually, this week, 1.5% of the company was given to employees.
Wow.
So, yeah. Not given, they earned it.
They earned it.
Yeah. That's the thing. And now they're all partners with me. That's the whole thing. That's why I like what they've done. At Ambevi, for example. I did work there. I thought it was great. That's the thing. You got to be, the things I learned is that you can't do it by yourself. You got to bring partners into, and you as a founder, you got to be painting a vision. You got to be capturing what they're saying, and then figuring out how to get these people aligned. That's how it works.
I'm sure a lot of people that are listening to us now are very inspired by your story.
Thank you.
You said you wanted to do something sooner. There are a lot of people getting their degree now, thinking that they want to be an entrepreneur. What would be your advice to these younger ones that are getting into the market now?
So I think that you do want to have some experience, right? So I'm saying like having a job at one point in life does help. I think a lot of the things that Marina and I are able to do at Larroudé is because we always work for other people, and like we know what it is to have health insurance. So we gave health insurance to every employee, everyone in Brazil and the US, they have that. So having a boss is good for being a boss later on. So I'm saying,
what are the faults and the...
Yeah, and you know what matters, and having experience is always great. So it's not, don't be ashamed to try experiences before you do your own thing. But if you are going to start something on your own, is that I think that finding a partner, at least one person, and this one person can find the second person and the third person. I ended up becoming a partner with my wife. She's the greatest, co-founder I could have. We're very connected. Do
you talk about something else at home?
We do, but we have to, we do a lot, but it's like both of us love this thing. It's like having a kid, it's like, but we, once in a while we have to remind ourselves to say, hey, no, let's not talk about that. But it's like, it's our purpose. It's like if you work in a place that feels like you're building something greater than what you want, whatever, it's good. But finding a partner, having a person that you can, whenever you're not feeling the greatest, they can do it. Like, it's like when you're raising kids, like you get home, it's like, man, I can't do this. I got you, And in business, sometimes you're like, I can't do this. I can't deal with that. And it's like, well, let me get a person for you. So that's partners is the best thing to do on starting a business. People say, I always wanted to find a partner, and I eventually found it in my wife. You should be creating your own abilities. You should be developing your social skills and your emotional intelligence to do that. That's something I developed later in life. That was actually in my 30s that I learned how to, deal with many people on talking point to multiple. I never posted something on Instagram before. I literally would be very proud that I never liked a thing until like maybe 6 years ago. And then I saw kids at a bar, and they were like, talking to each other, and then they would take a picture and they would post it, and then they would start, because they were at the bar, they were reacting to people that liked it. And I said, listen, being on the phone and being on social media is not about not being present. It's being able to have other things to talk about when you're present. It's like people say, "Oh, I'm not going to."
You're talking about something that is happening
exactly.
in New York. Yeah.
And it's just the way that you land in a place, and hey, I just got there. It's not about like showing off. It's like, because if you have a friend there, oh, you're here, let's grab a drink. And if you didn't do it, you like some people said. Some people said, "Oh, I've been to New York," and I said, "Why didn't you post?" Because if I saw it, I would say, "Let's grab a drink." So it's just like talking on the cell phone. It's like another point to communicate. And I was like, you need to learn how to communicate point to multi-point. The technology changed the point that everyone became a broadcaster. So you need to be able to talk to another 100 people.
You and the brand.
The brand, you do it. And then if you don't know how to do it for yourself, how are you going to guide your digital marketing team? How are you going to hire the person that's going to be doing that? If you got to know if the person knows how to do it. You got to feel what it is to post something and get no likes. You know, you got to feel it. So create the skills that will allow you to find great partners.
And that's my last question. What is the next skill that you want to perfect or to work on?
That's a very good question. I need to start going into this phase of letting go more. So the next, I have a few things that I need to set up in 2025. That I'm going to be very much of what I've done in the past 4 years. But then I will have to then change my gear and let other people do some of the gears that I was doing now. So I'll have to level up, and then start thinking, like, I always tell people, I hire people and they're doing great. And I was like, that's great, but how are you going to turn into 5? Because it's really about people. So I will need to turn myself into 5. And that's going to be a different thing. So I need to change my job when I'm done with this. It's about leveling up and finding 5 people that do what I do.
Let me know how you get there.
I hope that I do. I don't think it will be next year. I think it'll be, but that's my next phase. It'll be, I want to get more people I've ended up creating, like I have 30 people that I talk very constantly. It needs to be like 5 people that are high impact people.
Very good. Ricardo, it's a pleasure to have you
Thank
here.
you. I appreciate it.
Where we studied, the city we studied.
Yes. I was super impressed. I went out last night. It was the year-end party. São Paulo there's a lot going on here. A lot of bars. Like I walked from the place to the hotel. I was like, this was not here. Like things are very busy here. It's good to see.
It is. And food is ridiculous. Have you had the chance to go to a bakery? I just went to one. It's just like, oh my God, it's so good.
I haven't. I landed here last night and I have to fly back to New York.
Well, let's go to a bakery now.
Yes, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Ricardo.